Keisha, I need to ask you something strange, she said, her eyes darting away from the camera to check her instrument panel. Your husband, is he home right now? I paused, holding a glass of Pinot Noir halfway to my lips. Yes, I replied, glancing toward the hallway that led to our sunken living room. He is sitting in his favorite leather recliner watching the game. I can hear the commentary from here. Why are you asking me this? Jasmine's face moved closer to the screen, her expression stripped of all sisterly warmth, replaced by the cold professional mask she wore as a senior captain for a major international airline. That cannot be true, Keisha, because I'm looking at him right now. He just boarded my flight to Paris. He is in seat 1A in first class, and he is not alone. He is kissing another woman, and they are drinking champagne. My name is Keisha, and at 34 years old, I am one of the top forensic accountants in Atlanta. My entire career is built on spotting lies in financial statements, tracing hidden assets for Fortune 500 companies, and finding the single dollar that does not add up in a billion-dollar ledger. Yet as I stood in my immaculate kitchen with its marble countertops and custom cabinetry, I realized I had missed the biggest fraud of my life. Jasmine, stop joking, I said, my voice trembling slightly. I am looking at the back of his head right now. He has been complaining about a migraine all day. He took some medicine and said he just wanted to rest in the dark. Turn the camera around, Jasmine commanded. I need to see him. I walked slowly toward the living room. The house was dim, the heavy velvet curtains drawn against the afternoon sun. The television was on, muttering low tones of a football broadcast. There he was, the familiar silhouette of Dante, my husband of 6 years. He was slumped in the high-back chair, wearing his favorite gray cashmere hoodie, the hood pulled up over his head, as he often did when he had a headache. A rhythmic snoring sound emanated from the chair. See? I whispered, pointing my phone at him. He is right there. He is asleep. Keisha. Listen to me, Jasmine said, her voice rising in urgency over the background noise of airport chimes. Go touch him. Wake him up. Now. I crept forward. The air in the living room felt stagnant, too cold. The snoring sound was too consistent, too mechanical. I reached out a hand, my fingers brushing against the cashmere of his sleeve. It felt hollow. Dante, I asked. No response. I grabbed the shoulder of the hoodie and pulled. The figure did not wake up. It crumbled. The torso collapsed sideways, sliding off the chair with a soft thud. It was not a body. It was a collection of pillows stuffed inside his clothes. The head was a styrofoam wig stand from my closet covered by the hood. On the side table, hidden behind a vase of white lilies, was a small Bluetooth speaker playing a loop of snoring sounds recorded from who knows when. I stood over the pile of laundry that was supposed to be my husband, my mind struggling to process the sheer level of calculation required for this. This was not just a lie. This was a stage play. He is not here, I whispered to the phone, feeling the blood drain from my face. Jasmine, he is not here. I told you, Jasmine said, and I could hear the engines of her Boeing 777 beginning to whine as they prepped for pushback. He is here. He is on my plane. And Keisha, you need to check the safe. You need to check everything. I have to fly this plane. I cannot stop the takeoff now, but you need to call Brad. Call him immediately. I stood in the center of my living room, watching strangers dissect my life piece by piece. The FBI agents moved with efficient brutality, pulling books from shelves and dumping the contents of drawers onto the floor. The sound of shattering porcelain echoed from the dining room, probably one of the antique vases my mother had given us as a wedding gift, but I could not bring myself to care. My mind was stuck on a loop, replaying the image of the empty safe upstairs and the smirking yellow sticky note Dante had left behind. Mrs. Henderson, take a seat. The lead agent, whose badge identified him as Special Agent Miller, pointed to a kitchen stool. It was not a request. He slapped a thick file folder onto the marble island. The sound was loud, sharp, like a gunshot in the tense air. Do you recognize these companies? I looked down at the documents spread out before me. Henderson Global, KH Ventures, the Keisha Foundation. My name, or variations of it, was stamped across every header. I scanned the incorporation papers. There at the bottom of every page was my signature. It was a good forgery, I had to give him that. He had practiced. He had captured the sharp loop of the K and the specific slant of the H that I had developed over a decade of signing audit reports. But I saw the tremor in the ink, the slight hesitation at the end of the stroke. It was a forgery, but to a jury it would look like a confession. I did not sign these, I said, my voice sounding hollow to my own ears. I have never heard of these companies. That is convenient, Miller sneered, leaning into my personal space. Because these companies have moved $20 million of stolen investor funds through offshore accounts in the last 6 months. You are a forensic accountant, Mrs. Henderson. Are you telling me you did not notice $20 million moving through accounts with your name on them? He hid it. I said, the realization crashing over me like a wave of ice water. I felt nausea rise in my throat. He did not just steal from me. He framed me. He set me up to take the fall. I closed my eyes and suddenly the past 2 years made sickening sense. Dante telling me I worked too hard. Dante telling me I needed to relax, to let him handle the household finances so I could focus on my career. You are too controlling, Keisha, he would say, his voice dripping with false concern. It makes you look masculine. You need to soften up. Let your man be a man. Let me take care of you. I had let him. I had handed over the passwords. I had signed the power of attorney forms he said were for emergency medical situations. I had let him emasculate my instincts because I was afraid of losing him. I was afraid of being the angry, lonely black woman everyone said I would end up being if I didn't learn to submit. And while I was busy softening, he was busy sharpening his knife. Agent Miller pulled another document from the pile. We tracked the transfers. The money is gone, Mrs. Henderson, all of it. But it is not just the investors' money. We looked at your personal accounts too. I grabbed my phone, my fingers flying across the screen as I logged into the separate accounts I thought were safe. The joint account was 0, I knew that. But I had others. I checked the account for my mother's long-term care facility. It was a trust I had been building for 5 years to ensure she would never have to suffer in a state-run home. Balance 0. I felt the air leave my lungs. He took my mother's care money. I frantically switched apps to the education trust. My sister Jasmine and her husband Brad were wealthy. They didn't need my money, but I had insisted on starting a college fund for their daughter, my niece. It was my way of contributing, of being the good aunt. I had deposited $5,000 into it every month for the last 3 years. Balance 0. The screen blurred. I blinked back tears of rage. He had stolen from a child. He had stolen from an old woman. There was no floor to his depravity. He hadn't just robbed me. He had hollowed me out. He had taken my past, my present, and the future I had promised to the people I loved. And he had done it with Nia. The thought of her name made me want to scream. I looked at Agent Miller. You need to find them. He is with a woman named Nia. Nia Cross, Miller asked, checking his notes. We know. She is listed as the secretary for 3 of these shell companies. She is not just a passenger, Mrs. Henderson. She is a co-conspirator. I laughed, a harsh, jagged sound that made the agent step back. Of course she is. I created a monster. I remembered the day I met Nia. She was 19, working the front desk at my building, crying in the stairwell because she didn't have money for lunch. She was from the same neighborhood I grew up in, the same rough blocks that I had fought tooth and nail to escape. I saw myself in her. I saw the hunger and the fear. So I took her in. I gave her a job. I taught her how to dress, how to speak in boardrooms, how to demand respect. I thought I was mentoring her. I thought I was lifting her up. But Dante had been watching. He saw a girl who was hungry for more than just lunch. He saw a girl who looked at my life, my house, my clothes, my husband, and wanted it for herself. He didn't like me because I was his equal. He hated that I was the breadwinner. He hated that the house was in my name. He wanted someone he could mold, someone who would look at him like he was a god, because he bought her a designer bag with my money. He groomed her right under my nose. He turned my charity case into his getaway driver. I stood up. The shock was gone. The sadness was gone. I was just cold and sharp. I need to leave, I said. You are not going anywhere, Miller said, putting a hand on his holster. You are a suspect in a federal investigation. You are looking at 20 years in prison, Keisha. The front door, or what was left of it, swung open. Get your hand off your weapon and step away from my client. The voice was a low growl carrying the unmistakable weight of authority and old money. Brad strode into the living room like he owned the entire block. He was wearing a bespoke navy suit that cost more than the agent's car, his silver hair perfectly coiffed, his blue eyes blazing with a cold, hard fury. Brad was my brother-in-law, but in that moment he looked like a savior sent from the gods of corporate warfare. He didn't look at me. He looked straight at Agent Miller. "Who are you?" Miller demanded, though his posture faltered. "I am Bradley Whitmore, senior partner at Whitmore and Davis, and unless you have an indictment with a judge's wet signature on it, you are currently harassing a private citizen in her home without cause." Miller bristled. "We have probable cause. Her name is on the documents, and I have a handwriting expert standing outside who can prove in 5 minutes that those signatures are forged," Brad countered, slapping a file onto the island on top of the FBI's papers. "We also have GPS data from Mrs. Henderson's phone proving she was in depositions at the time these documents were notarized. You have nothing but a frame job, and you are wasting time harassing the victim while the real criminal is drinking bourbon at 30,000 feet. Miller looked at the file Brad had thrown down. He looked at Brad's face, which was set in stone. He knew who Whitmore and Davis was. Everyone in the legal world did. They were the firm you called when you wanted to destroy someone, not just win a case. "We still need her statement," Miller grumbled, backing down. "She will provide a written statement through my office tomorrow," Brad said. "Now get your team and get out of her house." Miller glared at me one last time, then signaled his team. "Pack it up, but do not leave town, Mrs. Henderson. We are watching you." As soon as the agents cleared the room, the mask fell off Brad's face. He rushed over and grabbed me by the shoulders. "Keisha, are you okay? Did they hurt you?" "I am broke, Brad," I whispered, the adrenaline finally crashing. "He took everything. The safe is empty. The accounts are gone. Even little Maya's college fund." Brad's jaw tightened. "I will replace Maya's fund. Do not worry about money right now. We have a bigger problem." He pulled out a tablet and placed it on the counter. He tapped the screen, bringing up a flight tracking map. A small plane icon was moving slowly over the Atlantic Ocean. "Jasmine is flying the plane," Brad said. "She locked the cockpit door. She has cut off the Wi-Fi to the first-class cabin so Dante cannot see the news or check his accounts. He thinks he is safe. He thinks he is landing in Paris to start a new life." I looked at the map. He is going to run Brad. Once he lands in Paris, he will disappear. "He is not staying in Paris," Brad said grimly. "Look at this." He swiped the screen. It was a hacked itinerary dug up by one of Brad's private investigators. Dante Williams. Flight 294 to Paris Charles de Gaulle. Connecting Flight 882 to Minsk, Belarus. "Belarus?" I asked. "No extradition treaty with the US," Brad said. "And from there he has a train ticket booked to Moscow. If he gets on that connecting flight to Minsk, Keisha, he is gone. We will never see him or that money again. The Russian banks will wash it clean in 24 hours. I stared at the map. "How long do we have?" Brad checked his watch. "The flight lands in Paris in 7 hours. His connection to Minsk leaves 5 hours after that. We have a 12-hour window in Paris. That is it. If we miss him at Charles de Gaulle, or if he makes it to the connection, it is over." I looked down at my hands. They were trembling not from fear, but from the sheer force of the rage boiling in my veins. I thought about Nia wearing my grandmother's necklace. I thought about Dante laughing at me, thinking I was just a stupid woman who was good at math but bad at life. "Get the jet," I said. "It is already fueled and waiting at DeKalb Peachtree Airport," Brad said. "I filed a flight plan for London to throw off the feds, but we are diverting to Le Bourget in Paris. We can be in the air in 30 minutes. I looked around my destroyed living room. My life was here, my reputation, my career. If I left now, the FBI would issue a warrant for my flight. I would be a fugitive until I could prove my innocence. "I do not care," I said aloud. Brad looked at me. He saw the resolve in my eyes. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. "Here is 10,000 euros in cash," he said. "And a burner phone. Leave your phone here. The feds are tracking it." I took the envelope. I took the burner phone. "One more thing," Brad said. He reached into his other pocket and pulled out a small velvet pouch. He opened it. Inside was a diamond ring that must have been 10 carats. "What is this?" I asked. "Bait," Brad said with a cold smile. "Dante is a narcissist. He is new money. He cannot resist showing off. We are going to use his greed against him." I did not understand yet, but I trusted Brad. He played the game better than anyone. "Let's go," I said. We walked out of the broken front door of my house without looking back. The Atlanta humidity hit me thick and heavy, but all I could feel was the cold steel of the trap I was about to set. Dante Williams wanted to play big. He wanted to be a high roller fine. I was going to cash him out. 30,000 feet above the Atlantic Ocean, the air in the cockpit of Flight 294 was cool, pressurized, and silent, save for the low hum of the avionics and the rhythmic crackle of air traffic control. I sat in the left seat, my hands resting lightly on the yoke, staring out at the endless expanse of clouds illuminated by the moonlight. My name is Jasmine, and I am the captain of this Boeing 777. I have flown through typhoons in the Pacific and landed in crosswinds that would ground lesser pilots. But tonight, the most dangerous turbulence on this aircraft was being generated by me. I keyed the intercom, my voice smooth and professional, the voice that calms 300 passengers when the air gets rough. Flight attendants prepare for service. But first, a heads up. We have a minor electrical fault in the first-class cabin. The heating elements for seats 1A and 1B are non-functional. It is going to get a little chilly up here. I released the button and looked over at my first officer, Dave. He was a good man, discreet. He knew something was wrong the moment I locked the cockpit door and told him that the man in 1A was the reason my sister was currently watching her life burn to the ground. Dave did not ask questions. He just nodded and adjusted the environmental controls isolating the temperature regulation for the front left section of the cabin. I checked the cabin monitor. The grainy black and white feed showed the first-class cabin. There he was, Dante. Even in the low light, his arrogance was visible. He was reclining, or trying to, his arm draped over the back of the seat like he owned the airline. Next to him was Nia. She was wearing my sister's scarf and my grandmother's necklace, examining a menu with the disdain of someone who had never eaten anything better than fast food until she stole my sister's credit card. I picked up the interphone to the lead flight attendant, Marcus. Marcus and I had been flying together for 10 years. He was family. "Marcus," I said quietly. "The couple in row 1. No alcohol." "Copy that," Captain Marcus replied, his tone clipping with understanding. "We are out of the good stuff." I watched on the monitor. I saw Nia snap her fingers. Not a wave, a snap. She pointed at her empty glass. Marcus walked over, his posture rigid. I could not hear the words, but I saw the body language. He leaned down, whispered something, and walked away. Nia's face twisted in shock. She turned to Dante, pouting, gesturing at the empty flute. Dante waved a hand dismissively, too busy talking to the man across the aisle to care about her thirst. I knew exactly what Dante was doing. He was networking, or what he called networking, which was actually just lying to strangers to feed his own ego. I switched the audio feed on. I needed to hear it. I needed the fuel. "I am in crypto," Dante was saying, his voice booming in the quiet cabin. "Just closed a Series B round for my fintech startup. We are disrupting the legacy banking systems. You know how it is. The old money does not like us, but they cannot stop the blockchain." The man across the aisle, a weary-looking executive in a wrinkled suit who just wanted to sleep, nodded politely. "I am actually heading to Paris to look at some real estate," Dante continued, not taking the hint. "The market in Atlanta is too small for me now. I need a global footprint. My wife, well, my ex, she just did not have the vision. She was a bean counter, no imagination." I gripped the yoke until my knuckles turned white. A bean counter. That bean counter had paid off his student loans. That bean counter had bought him that suit. That bean counter was the only reason he wasn't in jail years ago for tax evasion. "And Nia," she chimed in, her voice high and affected, trying to sound sophisticated. "We are looking for a penthouse in the 16th arrondissement, something with a view of the tower. We deserve a little luxury after all the stress of the exit." The exit. They called stealing $20 million and fleeing the country an exit. I looked at the weather radar. There was a patch of clear air ahead, smooth sailing all the way to France. But 5 miles south there was a pocket of instability. Nothing dangerous, just a little convective activity. Choppy. Unpleasant. I disengaged the autopilot. Dave looked at me. "I am just going to give them a better view of the stars," I said. I banked the plane 5 degrees south. In the cabin, the temperature was dropping. I saw Nia pull the thin airline blanket tighter around her shoulders. She was shivering. She pressed the call button repeatedly. Marcus ignored it. She hit the button to recline her seat into a bed. It didn't move. I had pulled the circuit breaker for the seat actuators in 1A and 1B 10 minutes ago. Dante was getting annoyed now. He was tapping his screen, probably trying to check his stolen millions, but the Wi-Fi was dead to his device ID. He slammed the remote down. Then we hit the air. It started as a shudder. The coffee in Dante's cup rippled. Then the plane dropped 50 feet. It wasn't a safety risk. The 777 was built like a tank, but to a passenger, it felt like the floor had vanished. I leveled out, then hit the next pocket. A sharp lateral jerk. On the monitor, I saw Nia gasp. She grabbed Dante's arm. He shoved her off, annoyed that she had spilled his water on his sleeve. "Babe, stop." Dante snapped, his voice audible over the feed. "It is just a little bump. You are embarrassing me. I am going to be sick," Nia moaned. She looked pale. The combination of the stuffy, uncirculated air I had restricted to their row, the sudden drop in temperature, and the rhythmic, sickening lurch of the aircraft was doing its work. I keyed the mic for the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are encountering some unexpected chop. Please fasten your seatbelts. Flight attendants, please take your seats." This meant no one could help her. No ginger ale, no cold towel. I banked left again, finding the edge of the wake turbulence from a cargo plane ahead of us. The plane wiggled like a fish on a line. Naya clamped a hand over her mouth. She reached for the sickness bag in the seat pocket. It wasn't there. Marcus had removed them during his safety check. She lunged across Dante, trying to get to the aisle. "Sit down," Dante yelled, pushing her back. "You are going to get us in trouble." He cared more about the flight attendant scolding him than the woman he had destroyed a marriage for. The plane took another dip, a hard one. Nia lost the battle. It was not graceful. It was a violent projectile expulsion of cheap airport sushi and fear. And because Dante had pushed her back, she didn't hit the floor. She hit him. The vomit splashed across the front of his bespoke Italian suit. It soaked into the lapel. It splattered onto the leather armrest and pooled on the console between them. Dante screamed. It was a high, undignified sound. He jumped up, unbuckling his belt, frantically wiping at his chest. "You stupid cow!" he shouted, forgetting the billionaire persona, forgetting the French real estate. "Look what you did! This is Armani!" Nia was sobbing, heaving dryly, humiliated. The smell must have been horrific in that confined, unventilated space. The executive across the aisle pulled his noise-canceling headphones tight and turned away in disgust. I watched on the monitor. Dante was not helping her. He was not asking if she was okay. He was trying to get away from her. He was standing in the aisle demanding napkins from a flight attendant who was strapped into his jump seat, shaking his head. "Sit down, sir," Marcus yelled from the back. "The seatbelt sign is on." Dante looked at the mess in his seat. He looked at Nia, who was curled in a ball, crying, wearing my grandmother's diamonds covered in bile. He looked at the cold, dark reality of his new life. I banked the plane back on course. The air smoothed out. "Enjoy the flight," I whispered to the empty cockpit. "It is going to be a long 6 hours smelling your own choices." 5,000 feet below and 200 miles behind, a Gulfstream G650 sliced through the night sky like a silver bullet. The cabin was silent, smelling of rich leather and espresso. This was real wealth, not the fraud Dante was pretending to be. I sat at a mahogany table, my laptop open, the blue light illuminating my face. I was done crying. The tears had dried up somewhere between the FBI raid and the moment Brad handed me the burner phone. Brad sat opposite me, reviewing a dossier on Belarusian banking laws. He looked calm, predatory. He was in his element. But he kept glancing at me, checking for cracks in the porcelain. He would not find any. Not tonight. I typed a command into the terminal window on my screen. "How are we doing?" Brad asked. "I am in," I said, my voice flat. He used the same password for his cloud storage that he used for our Netflix account. Narcissists never think they need security because they think they are untouchable. I scrolled through the file directory. Dante was sloppy. He had digital copies of everything. The fake incorporation papers, the wire transfer receipts, and there in a folder named Paris was the master ledger. He moved the money through a mixer, I said, tracing the digital path. He split the 20 million into 4 tranches. 5 million to a crypto wallet, 5 million to a shell company in the Caymans, 5 million to purchase citizenship in Montenegro. And 5 million... I paused, squinting at the screen. And 5 million in cash, Brad asked. No, I said. 5 million is sitting in a holding account in a private bank in Paris. It is waiting for a signature. That is his walking around money, Brad said. He needs that to pay the bribes and buy the villa. I opened a new window. I launched the forensic software I used to audit cartels and corrupt senators. It was a tool that could pierce through 3 layers of shell companies in minutes. I can see the account, I said. It is at Banca Privée. He has a meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow to release the funds. We land at 7 a.m., Brad said. We can beat him there. I am not just going to beat him there, Brad, I said, my fingers flying across the keyboard. I am going to replace him. What do you mean? He forged my signature to steal the money, I said, pulling up the signature file he had used. He digitized my handwriting. He thought that was clever, but he forgot one thing. What I own the digital identity he is using to validate the transaction. He set up the 2-factor authentication to go to an email address he thought I didn't know about. It was the email we made for our future children, the one we were going to give them when they turned 18. I logged into the email account. Baby Henderson. The inbox was full of authentication codes for illegal transfers. He used our dead dream to rob me, I whispered. I reset the password. I locked him out. Then I opened the banking portal for the Paris account. I am not going to wait for the police, I said to Brad. The FBI moves too slow. The French authorities will take weeks to process a warrant. By then, he will be in Minsk. I hit enter. A progress bar appeared on the screen. Rerouting verification. I am going to drain him, I said. I am going to redirect the authorization codes to my burner phone. When he walks into that bank tomorrow to withdraw his 5 million, the system is going to flag him as an imposter. And then Brad asked. And then I am going to trigger a margin call on his crypto wallet, I said. I can see his leverage. He borrowed against the stolen money to buy Bitcoin. If I crash the value of his portfolio by dumping his holdings, the exchange will liquidate him. He will lose the 5 million in crypto without me even touching it. You are destroying the money, Brad asked, raising an eyebrow. No, I said. I am shorting his position from my personal trading account. I am betting against him. When he loses, I profit. I am going to make back my mother's nursing home money from his stupidity. The laptop beeped. Access granted. I looked at Brad. My eyes were dry. My heart was a stone. He thinks he is landing in Paris to be a king, I said. He is landing in a cage. And I have the only key. I closed the laptop. The jet engines hummed, pushing us closer to the man who had ruined my life. I poured myself a glass of sparkling water. Let's go get my necklace, I said. Paris is supposed to be the city of lights, the city of romance, the place where lovers lock their promises onto bridges and drink wine by the Seine. But as the Gulf Stream touched down on the private tarmac at Le Bourget at 7 in the morning, the sky was a bruised shade of gray, and the air tasted like cold rain and diesel fumes. I did not come here for croissants or love. I came here for war. While Brad handled the customs officials with a few quiet words and a flash of his diplomatic connections, I sat in the back of the blacked-out Mercedes Sprinter van he had arranged. I opened the burner laptop. My target was moving. Dante and Naya had cleared customs at Charles de Gaulle an hour ago. I tracked Dante's phone through the Find My Device feature he had forgotten to disable on his iPad, which was currently sitting in my evidence bag. The blue dot moved sluggishly through the morning traffic, bypassing the modest hotels and heading straight for the Place Vendôme. He is going to the Ritz, I said to Brad as he climbed into the van. Of course he is, because nothing says I'm a fugitive with stolen money like checking into a €5,000 a night suite. Brad checked his watch. He is predictable. That is good for us. New money always screams. Old money whispers. We are going to whisper him into a corner. We parked 2 streets away from the Ritz. I did not want to risk being seen yet. I needed to know his mindset. I needed to know his next move before he made it. I opened Instagram on the burner phone. Dante had blocked my main account months ago, claiming social media was a distraction from our relationship, but I had a fake profile I used for investigating debtors. There he was, live. The video feed was shaky at first, panning around a suite, that was dripping in gold leaf and velvet. A bottle of Cristal sat on the table already open. Nia was in the background, jumping on the bed in a bathrobe, holding my grandmother necklace up to the light. "Bonjour from Paris," baby Dante shouted into the camera. He looked manic. His eyes were too wide, his movements too jerky. The cocaine I suspected he had been using was definitely kicking in. We made it to the top. No more answering to nobody. No more asking for permission to spend my own money. He turned the camera on himself. He had changed out of the vomit-stained suit into a fresh designer tracksuit that probably cost more than my first car. "For all the haters back home, especially my ex," he sneered, bringing the phone closer to his face. "You thought you were the prize. You were just the ATM. You were boring Keisha. You were a spreadsheet in a world of art. I needed a muse, not a manager. Look at me now. I am free." I watched my face impassive as the comments rolled in. Most were from bots he had paid for, but a few were from our mutual friends back in Atlanta, confused and horrified. "He thinks he is untouchable," I whispered. "He is about to touch the electric fence," Brad muttered, watching over my shoulder. I closed the stream. I did not need to hear his insults. I knew I was boring to him. Stability is always boring to people addicted to chaos. Integrity is boring to people addicted to fraud. I turned back to my laptop. I had breached his cloud storage on the plane, but now I needed to go deeper. I needed to find his leverage. Men like Dante always had a backup plan, a way to generate cash if the primary theft went sideways. I dug through a folder labeled insurance. I expected to find blackmail photos of business partners or perhaps hidden crypto keys. What I found made my blood turn to ice in my veins. It was a PDF document, scanned 3 days ago. Deed of trust. Property address. 450 Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, Atlanta, Georgia. My parents' house. The house my father bought with 40 years of factory wages. The house where I grew up. The house that was fully paid off 10 years ago. Or so I thought. I scrolled down. There was a signature at the bottom. My signature. Forged again. And next to it a stamp from a notary public I knew Dante used for his shady deals. He had taken out a hard money loan against my parents' house. Not a bank loan. A predatory, high-interest loan from a private lender. I looked at the lender name. T-Bone Capital LLC. I knew that name. In my line of work, you learn the names of the people who operate in the gray zones. T-Bone was a front for a local syndicate in Atlanta. They did not sue you when you missed a payment. They burned your property down with you inside it. I opened the email correspondence attached to the file. There was an email from T-Bone sent yesterday. Yo D, payment due in 48 hours. If the transfer does not hit, we take possession. And by possession we mean we clear the property. Tell the old folks to pack light. I felt a scream building in my throat, hot and acidic. He had not just stolen my money, he had put a hit out on my parents. They were sitting in their living room right now, watching Jeopardy, completely unaware that they were living in a house that belonged to gangsters. I grabbed Brad's arm, my grip tight enough to bruise. He mortgaged my parents' house. I gasped, the air struggling to enter my lungs. To loan sharks. Brad, if we do not get that money back in 48 hours, they are going to hurt my mother and father. Brad's face hardened. He took the laptop from me and read the email. His eyes narrowed. "We call the FBI," he said. "We tell Agent Miller. They can put your parents in protective custody." "No," I shouted, realizing the trap I was in. "If I call the FBI, they freeze everything. They freeze the offshore accounts. They freeze the crypto wallet. The government will seize the assets as evidence of a crime. It will take 5 years of litigation to release those funds. T-Bone will not wait 5 years, Brad. They will not wait 5 days. If that money is frozen, my parents lose their home. Or worse." I started hyperventilating. Dante had checkmated me. If I arrested him, I lost. If I let him go, I lost. "We have to steal it back," I said, my voice trembling. "We have to steal it back before the authorities find it. It is the only way. I need liquid cash to pay off T-Bone immediately." Brad looked at me. He saw the desperation. He was a lawyer. He was sworn to uphold the law. But he was also family. And he knew the system better than anyone. He knew I was right. The wheels of justice would grind my parents into dust before they ever dispensed a penny of restitution. Okay, Brad said, his voice low and dangerous. We do it your way. We rob the robber. I took a deep breath, forcing my heart rate down. I had to think like an accountant. I had to follow the money. Dante has 5 million in that holding account here in Paris, I said, my fingers flying across the keyboard again. He is going to try to move it today. He needs to wash it before he gets on that train to Moscow. He knows a direct transfer to Belarus will flag Interpol. I accessed his search history from the last hour. How to buy gold bullion in Paris anonymous. High-value art dealers cash only. Private equity funds non-reporting. He is looking for a laundry machine, I said. He is looking for somewhere to dump $5 million fast, get a clean asset and run. He is panicked, Brad observed. He knows he is exposed. He is looking for a quick fix. I kept scrolling. He had clicked on a link for a boutique investment firm called L'Argentier Private Wealth. It was a dummy site, a trap set up by scammers to catch idiots like Dante. But he did not know that. He had filled out a contact form. Name, Dante King. Net worth 20 million. Interested in high-yield total privacy, immediate placement. He is phishing, I said. He is begging to be scammed. Brad looked at the screen. Then a slow, cold smile spread across his face. It was the smile of a shark sensing blood in the water. He wants a private wealth manager, Brad asked. He wants someone who speaks the language of the elite. Someone who looks like the kind of person who can make problems disappear for a fee. I looked at Brad. With his silver hair, his tailored suit, and his aura of absolute unshakable authority, he looked exactly like the kind of man Dante desperately wanted to be. He looked like old money. He looked like the gatekeeper. I know exactly who will play the fund manager, Brad said. You, I asked. No, Brad said. He knows my face from the wedding photos. I cannot do it, but I have a friend here. Jean-Luc. He is a former investment banker who lost his license for trading too aggressively. He owes me a favor. A big one. He hates new money fraud boys more than I do. Brad pulled out his phone and dialed. Jean-Luc, say Brad, we have a pigeon. Yes, a fat one. Meet us at Le Jules Verne in 2 hours, and bring the paperwork for the Geneva Fund. The fake one, yes. We are going to clean him out. He hung up and looked at me. We are going to set up a meeting, Brad explained. Jean-Luc will be the front man. I will be the silent partner in the background. We are going to offer Dante exactly what he wants. A secret high-yield account in Switzerland that is invisible to the IRS and the FBI. We will tell him he needs to transfer the funds immediately to lock in the rate before the market closes. And when he transfers the money, I asked. The IBAN number we give him will not go to Switzerland, Brad said. It will go to a shell company I own in the Cayman Islands. As soon as the money hits, we wire it to the loan shark in Atlanta to pay off your parents' house. Then we wire the rest to your trust account. It is wire fraud, I whispered. It is asset recovery, Brad corrected. And he cannot report us without reporting himself. I looked at the screen where Dante's digital footprint was glowing. He was so arrogant, so stupid. He thought he was playing chess, but he was playing checkers against grandmasters. Set the meeting, I said. Brad texted Jean-Luc. Within 10 minutes, Jean-Luc had replied to Dante's inquiry using a secure encrypted email service. Dear Mr. King, we received your inquiry. We handle clients of your stature with the utmost discretion. We have an opening in our Alpha Fund, but it closes at 5 p.m. today. If you can prove liquidity, we can meet you for lunch. Le Jules Verne, Eiffel Tower. Come alone, or with your associate. I watched Dante's email inbox. The reply came in 30 seconds. I will be there. Cash is ready. He took the bait, I said. Brad stood up and buttoned his jacket. Get changed, Keisha. You are coming too. I cannot, I said. He will see me. No, he won't, Brad said. Le Jules Verne has private alcoves. You are going to be sitting right behind him. You are going to record every word. We need his voice admitting the money is stolen. If the wire transfer fails, or if he tries to back out, we use the recording to force his hand. I looked down at my travel clothes. I looked exhausted. I looked like a victim. I opened my suitcase. I pulled out a black dress. Sharp. Professional. The kind of dress I wore when I was firing someone for embezzlement. I put on my lipstick. It was a deep blood red. I am ready, I said. Let's go to lunch, Brad said. We walked out into the Paris morning. The city was waking up. The cafes were opening. It was a beautiful day for a robbery. Dante wanted to live like a king in Paris. I was going to make sure his last meal as a free man was one he would never forget. He called me boring. He called me a grandmother. Well, Grandma was coming to collect, and she was bringing the bill. The private gaming club was located in a nondescript limestone building just off the Champs-Élysées. There was no signage, just a heavy black door and a camera that judged your net worth before the lock even clicked. I sat in the blacked-out surveillance van 2 streets away, my headphones pressed tight against my ears, watching the video feed from the button camera concealed on Brad's lapel. It was showtime. Brad stepped out of the car and buttoned his jacket. He looked like a titan of industry, the kind of man who could crash a currency market with a phone call. His suit was charcoal gray, bespoke cut to make him look broad-shouldered and imposing. On his wrist sat a vintage Patek Philippe watch that cost more than the house Dante grew up in. He did not look like he was trying to be rich. He looked like he had been rich since the day he was born. Inside the club, Dante was sitting at a private baccarat table. He stuck out like a neon sign in a library. He was wearing a white tuxedo jacket with black lapels, the kind of outfit you rent for prom or wear when you are trying too hard to look like James Bond. A stack of chips sat in front of him, but his leg was bouncing nervously under the table. He was drinking cognac like it was water. Next to him sat Nia. She looked bored. She was scrolling through her phone, ignoring the game, ignoring Dante. She was wearing a red dress that was cut too low and tight for a place like this. She looked expensive, but in a way that screamed rental. Brad walked in. He did not look around. He did not look impressed. He walked straight to the bar and ordered a sparkling water with a twist of lemon. I whispered into the microphone. He is at the table to your left. Do not look at him yet. Make him come to you. Brad nodded almost imperceptibly. He took a sip of his water and pulled out his phone, checking a market ticker. Dante spotted him immediately. I saw his eyes widen on the camera feed. He saw the suit. He saw the watch. He saw the way the bartender had practically bowed when serving the water. Dante Williams, the boy from Atlanta, who spent his whole life trying to prove he was big time, could not resist a man like Brad. Dante nudged Nia. Look, he whispered, though his voice was clear in my ear. That guy. That is the heavy hitter I saw at the airport, the one with the private jet. Nia looked up. Her eyes locked onto Brad. Her expression shifted instantly from boredom to predatory interest. She fixed her hair and sat up straighter. Dante stood up. He picked up his drink and walked over to the bar. He had the swagger of a man with $20 million in stolen money, but the insecurity of a man who knew he did not belong. Excuse me, Dante said, leaning against the bar. I could not help but notice the watch. 1954 reference. Brad turned slowly. He looked Dante up and down, his expression mild, unimpressed. 52, Brad corrected. Good eye. I am Dante. Dante said, extending a hand. Dante King. I am in FinTech. Just expanded operations to Europe. Brad shook the hand briefly, then pulled away. Bradley Whitmore. Private equity. I saw the spark in Dante's eyes. Private equity. That was the magic word. That was the club he desperately wanted to be in. We are looking for placement for some capital, Dante said, dropping the bait immediately. He had no poker face. He was desperate to be validated. We had a very successful exit in the States. Cash heavy right now. Brad took a sip of water. He looked bored. Cash is a liability in this market, Mr. King. Inflation eats it alive. And the reporting requirements these days. It is a headache. We moved most of our liquidity into non-reporting assets last quarter. Non-reporting, Dante repeated. The greed was practically dripping off him. That is exactly what we are looking for. Privacy is key for us. Brad turned back to his phone as if the conversation was over. Well, good luck with that. The European banks are leaking like sieves. If you are holding cash in a commercial bank, the IRS already knows about it. Dante's face paled. I knew exactly what he was thinking. He was thinking about the $5 million sitting in that holding account waiting to be seized. Is there a way around that? Dante asked, his voice dropping. Brad sighed, checking his watch. Look, Mr. King, I am waiting for a client. But if you are serious about privacy, you do not use banks. You use structures, trusts, alpha funds. Nia had walked up behind Dante. She slid her arm through his, but her eyes were on Brad. She smiled a slow, sultry smile that she used to use on me when she wanted a raise. "Hi," she purred. "I am Nia. I handle the operations." Brad looked at her. He gave her a smile that was polite but cold. "A pleasure." Nia reached out and touched Brad's lapel. "I love this fabric," she said, letting her hand linger. "It feels like money." I watched Dante on the screen. His jaw tightened. He pulled his arm away from Nia, possessive and insecure. "We are looking to move about 5 million immediately," Dante said, trying to reclaim the alpha position. "Today." Brad raised an eyebrow. 5 million. That is a bit below our minimum entry, but for the right client we sometimes make exceptions. We run a blind trust out of Geneva. No names, no reporting. Just a numbered account and a key. Dante's eyes lit up. "That is it. That is what I need." Brad leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "Be careful, Mr. King. Liquid cash makes people do crazy things, especially the people closest to us." He glanced pointedly at Nia, who was currently staring at the bartender diamond earrings. Dante looked at Nia. He looked back at Brad. Brad continued, his voice a masterful whisper of conspiracy. "I had a client last year. Exited his company for 50 million. Kept it in a joint account. His girlfriend cleared it out while he was in the shower. Gone. He never saw a dime." I saw the paranoia bloom in Dante's eyes. It was beautiful. He looked at Nia with sudden suspicion. He remembered that she knew where the money was. He remembered that she had been asking about the account passwords all morning. "This Geneva account," Dante asked. "Is it sole signatory?" "Only the holder of the key can access it," Brad said. "Not even a spouse can touch it. It is a black box." "I need that," Dante said. He was sweating now. "I need that today." Brad checked his watch again. "I am having lunch at Le Jules Verne at the Eiffel Tower in 2 hours. My partner Jean-Luc handles the onboarding. He is flying back to Zurich tonight. If you want in, you bring the transfer authorization codes to lunch." "I will be there," Dante said. "Alone," Brad added. "These transactions require absolute discretion. No associates, no girlfriends." Dante looked at Nia. She was busy taking a selfie with her cocktail. "Alone," Dante agreed. Brad finished his water. "See you at 1 o'clock, Mr. King. Do not be late." The window closes when the market closes. Brad walked out. He did not look back. As soon as he was out of the club, I heard him exhale through the microphone. "He is hooked," Brad said as he climbed into the van. "He is terrified she is going to rob him." "He is projecting," I said, watching the screen. Inside the club, Dante was arguing with Nia. "I have a business meeting," Dante hissed. "You are going shopping." "I want to come," Nia whined. "You never take me anywhere." "Here," Dante said, pulling a stack of euros from his pocket. "Go buy yourself another bag. I have to handle the money. If I do not fix this, we lose everything." Nia snatched the money. "You are acting weird, Dante." "I am acting like a boss," Dante snapped. "Go." He walked away from her. He looked terrified. He looked like a man who was realizing that the walls were closing in. I closed the laptop. We had him. He was going to transfer the money into our control voluntarily. He was going to hand me back my life because he was too afraid of his mistress to trust her. "Let us go to the tower," I said to Brad. "I want to see his face when he realizes who the fund manager really is." We drove through the streets of Paris. The city was gray and imposing, but for the first time in days, I saw color. I saw the red of the stoplights, the gold of the street lamps, and the green of the money that was coming back home. Dante thought he was a wolf. He thought he was the predator. He had no idea that he had just walked into the cage, locked the door, and handed me the key. And the best part was, he thought it was his idea. I checked my makeup in the rearview mirror. My eyes were sharp. My lips were painted a deep, unforgiving crimson. It was time for lunch. Le Jules Verne restaurant hangs 400 feet above the city of Paris, like a diamond setting in an iron crown. The view from the windows offers a panoramic sweep of the Seine-le-Louvre and the sprawling gray rooftops that define the city. It is a place where billionaires eat lunch and where governments sign treaties over soufflés. But I was not looking at the view. I was staring at the back of a white tuxedo jacket that was currently occupying table 12. I sat at table 14, tucked deep into a semi-private alcove, obscured by a massive architectural arrangement of white orchids and steel beams. I was wearing the black dress, dark sunglasses that I had not removed despite the dim lighting, and a wide-brimmed hat that cast a shadow over my face. I looked like a grieving widow or a celebrity trying to avoid the paparazzi. In a way, I was both. I was grieving the death of the man I thought I married, and I was avoiding the gaze of the criminal who had killed him. In my ear, a small flesh-colored receiver hummed with static before clarifying into the crisp audio feed from the microphone hidden on Brad's lapel. I opened the voice recorder app on my phone. The waveform danced as the ambient noise of clinking silverware and hushed French conversations filled the recording. Brad sat across from Dante. Jean-Luc, Brad's friend and our acting frontman, sat to the side looking every inch the bored, high-level European banker. "You brought the girl," Brad said. His voice was ice. "We discussed this, Mr. King. Discretion is the currency of this transaction." I watched through the gap in the orchids. Dante shifted in his seat. He looked nervous, sweaty. The cocaine confidence from the live stream was fading, replaced by the twitchy paranoia of a man carrying the keys to a stolen kingdom. "She is my associate," Dante stammered, gesturing to Nia. "She handles my logistics." Nia beamed at Brad, completely oblivious to the tension. She was eating the breadbasket like she hadn't seen food in days, crumbs falling onto the red dress she had worn to the casino. Brad did not look at her. He looked at Dante. "If she handles your logistics, then she is liable," Brad said. "If this account is flagged, she goes to prison with you. Is that what you want?" Dante flinched. He looked at Nia with a sudden flash of resentment. I could see the wheels turning in his head. He did not want to share the money. He did not want to share the risk. "Babe, why don't you go check out the view from the observation deck?" Dante said, pulling a credit card from his pocket. "Go buy a souvenir." Nia pouted, dropping a piece of bread. "But we just got here. I want to eat. This place is fancy." "Go," Dante snapped. His voice cracked like a whip. "This is business." Nia glared at him, snatched the card, and flounced away toward the elevators. I watched her go. She was walking away from the table, but she wasn't leaving the game. I checked the tracking software on her phone. She wasn't going to the observation deck. She was going to the ladies' room to make a call. I made a mental note to intercept that call later. "Now that the children have left the room," Brad said, leaning back in his chair, "let us discuss your liquidity." Dante exhaled, loosening his bow tie. He took a large gulp of wine. The waiter hadn't even poured it yet. Dante had served himself. "I have the codes," Dante said. 5 million. Ready to move. I just need to know it is safe. My ex-wife. She is relentless. She is a forensic accountant. If there is a paper trail, she will find it. I gripped the stem of my wine glass so hard I felt the crystal flex. "She sounds formidable," Brad said, swirling his Bordeaux. "She is a machine," Dante scoffed. He poured himself more wine, his hand shaking slightly. "That is all she is. A calculator in a skirt. You know, when I met her, I thought she was a boss. I thought, here is a woman who can build an empire. But she has no soul. She is dry as a tile. I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted copper. She never understood me." Dante continued, his voice growing louder as the alcohol hit his empty stomach. "I am a visionary. I have ideas, big ideas. But every time I wanted to invest, every time I wanted to pivot, she wanted to see a spreadsheet. She wanted a risk assessment. She suffocated me. I remembered the big ideas Dante had. The NFT collection of pixelated hamsters, the energy drink company that turned out to be a pyramid scheme, the app that was supposed to replace Uber but didn't actually have any drivers. I had saved him from every single one of those disasters. I had audited the contracts and shown him the fraud. I had protected him from his own stupidity for 6 years, and he hated me for it." "She never knew how to live," Dante said, looking at Brad with a conspiratorial grin. "She made 6 figures, but she shopped with coupons. She worried about retirement accounts and college funds for kids we didn't even have. I tried to show her the world. I tried to teach her how to enjoy the moment. But she was dead weight." He leaned in closer to Brad. "Naya. Now that is a woman who knows how to live." She appreciates the finer things. She looks at me like I am a king. Keisha looked at me like I was an employee she couldn't fire. The glass stem in my hand snapped. The sound was a sharp crack muffled by the white noise of the restaurant. A shard of crystal sliced into my palm. I didn't flinch. I watched the blood well up in the center of my hand, dark and thick. I did not look at you like an employee, Dante, I thought, my internal voice screaming against the silence. I looked at you like a partner. I looked at you like a man who needed help. I looked at you with love, even when you didn't deserve it. Brad saw me flinch in his peripheral vision. He cleared his throat, drawing Dante's attention back to the table. Women like that are liabilities. Brad agreed, his voice smooth as silk. They hold men like us back. That is why we built the Geneva Fund. To protect visionaries from the people who want to keep them small. Exactly, Dante said, slamming his hand on the table. I deserve this money. I earned it. I put up with her lectures for 6 years. This is my severance package. You earned it, Brad repeated. The sarcasm was so thick I could taste it, but Dante swallowed it whole. Jean-Luc placed a sleek black tablet on the table. He tapped the screen, bringing up a complex interface of charts and numbers. It looked like a sophisticated banking portal. It was actually a website Brad's IT guy had built in the back of the van an hour ago. This is the gateway, Jean-Luc said in a heavy French accent. Once you input your current custodial account number and the transfer authorization code, the funds will be swept into a numbered account in Zurich. The transaction is encrypted. It bypasses the SWIFT system entirely. No one will see it. Not the IRS, not the FBI, and certainly not your wife. Dante stared at the screen. The greed in his eyes was naked ugly. He saw freedom. He saw sports cars and villas. He saw a life where he never had to hear the word budget again. He pulled out his phone. I need the code, Dante muttered. I watched my burner phone in my lap. The notification popped up. Banque Privée authorization requested for transfer of $5 million. Please enter code 8842 to confirm. Dante frowned at his phone. I am not getting the text. The network in the tower is spotty, Brad said quickly. Try refreshing. I waited 5 seconds, just long enough to make him sweat, just long enough to make him panic that maybe, just maybe I had found him. Then I hit forward. Dante's phone pinged. He let out a breath he had been holding. Got it, he said. He typed the numbers into the tablet. 8842. Jean-Luc nodded. He turned the tablet toward Dante. There was a single green button on the screen. It said, Execute. This is the point of no return, Mr. King, Brad said softly. Once you press that button, you become a platinum partner. The money vanishes from the U.S. banking system. It becomes untraceable. That is exactly what I want, Dante said. He did not hesitate. He did not think about my mother's nursing home. He did not think about my niece's college fund. He did not think about the vows he made to me at the altar. He pressed the button. The screen flashed green. Transfer complete. Dante fell back into his chair, laughing. A loud, braying laugh that turned heads across the restaurant. Done, he shouted. It is done. I am a ghost. I looked at my laptop screen under the table. The banking alert flashed. Incoming wire, $5 million received. Destination Whitmore and Davis escrow account. The money was gone from his control. It was sitting in an account controlled by Brad, waiting to be wired to the loan sharks in Atlanta to save my parents' house. Dante poured himself another glass of wine. He raised it to Brad. To freedom, he said. To justice, Brad replied, raising his water glass. I wrapped a napkin around my bleeding hand. The pain was sharp grounding. I pressed stop on the recorder. I had everything. The confession, the insults, the admission of theft. And now I had the money. Dante thought he had just bought his freedom. He had just bought his own destruction. Nia came back to the table. She looked flushed, excited. She sat down and grabbed Dante's arm. Did you do it? She whispered. It is handled, Dante said, puffing out his chest. We are rich, baby, untouchable. Brad stood up. He buttoned his jacket. Welcome to the club, Mr. King, Brad said. You will receive your account keys via courier at your hotel tonight. Do not lose them. Without those keys, the money does not exist. I will guard them with my life, Dante promised. We have to go, Brad said. We have a plane to catch. Brad and Jean-Luc walked away. Dante did not even watch them go. He was too busy staring at Nia, imagining the life they were going to lead. I waited until Brad was clear. Then I stood up. I adjusted my hat. I walked past table 12. I paused just for a second right behind Dante's chair. I could smell his cologne. It was the expensive musky scent I had bought him for our anniversary. I leaned in just slightly and whispered into the air behind his ear. "Enjoy the view, Dante. It is a long way down." He whipped his head around. He looked frantically around the restaurant. But I was already moving, blending into the crowd of tourists near the exit. "Did you hear that?" Dante asked Nia, his voice high with panic. "Hear what?" Nia asked, checking her makeup in her phone camera. I thought I heard Keisha." Nia laughed. "You are paranoid, baby. She is in Atlanta crying into her pillow. She is probably talking to the police right now with nothing to show them. Forget her. She is the past." Dante relaxed. He laughed again, but it sounded forced. "Yeah, you are right. She is the past." I walked into the elevator. The doors closed, shutting out the sound of his laughter. I checked my phone. The wire transfer to T-Bone Capital had just cleared. My parents were safe. The house was safe. Now it was time for the rest of the money. I looked at the tracking app for Nia's phone. She had made a call from the bathroom. I played the recording I had intercepted. "Hey, baby." "Yeah, he did it. The idiot transferred the money." "No, he thinks it is in a Swiss account." "But I saw the passcode he wrote down. As soon as he gets those keys, I am taking them. I will meet you in Miami on Tuesday." "Yeah, we are going to be rich." I smiled. It was a cold, terrifying expression that frightened me when I caught my reflection in the elevator's brass doors. Dante thought he was the player. He didn't realize he was the mark, and he didn't realize that the woman sitting next to him was holding a knife behind her back. I stepped out into the cool Paris air. The game wasn't over. It was just entering the final round, and I was about to ring the bell. The vibration of the phone on the table was the only sound in the world that mattered. Dante picked it up, his hands trembling not with fear anymore, but with the adrenaline of a gambler who just pushed all his chips into the center of the table and saw the dealer bust. He stared at the screen, his eyes wide and manic, reflecting the blue light. Zero balance. He laughed. It was a guttural, ugly sound that made the couple at the next table look over in alarm. He turned the phone toward Nia, shoving the screen in her face. "Look at it, baby. It is gone. The account is empty. The feds can freeze whatever they want back in Atlanta. They can put a lien on the house. They can seize the cars. But they cannot touch this. It is in the wind. We are ghosts." Nia looked at the screen. I watched her face through the gap in the orchids. She did not look relieved. She looked hungry. Her eyes darted from the zero balance on the banking app to the tablet Brad had left on the table, the one that supposedly held the keys to the Swiss kingdom. "You have the codes?" she asked, her voice tight. "The access keys for the new account." Dante tapped his chest pocket. "Right here. Memorized and written down. I am the only one who can access it. Sole signatory, just like the man said." He poured the last of the wine into his glass, not bothering to offer any to her. He was already mentally spending the money. I could see it in the way he adjusted his cufflinks, the way he leaned back in the chair. He was fantasizing about yachts and private islands, about a life where he was the king and everyone else was a subject. "I need to use the ladies' room," Nia said, standing up abruptly. Her hand clutched her purse a little too tightly. Dante waved a hand at her, dismissive. "Go ahead, fix your face. We have a limousine waiting downstairs." Brad arranged it. "We are going to the hotel to pack, and then we are hitting the town. Tonight we celebrate." I watched Nia walk away. She did not head for the restrooms near the entrance. She headed for the private lounge area near the elevators, a secluded spot with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Seine. It was the perfect place for a private conversation. I waited until she turned the corner, then I pulled out my burner phone. I had cloned her SIM card 4 hours ago while we were still in the air. It was a gray area legally, but I had crossed the line of legality the moment I decided to hunt them down myself. I opened the surveillance app. Her phone was active. She was dialing a US number. I put my earbud back in. The line connected. The voice that answered was male, deep and rough. "Yo, it is me," Nia whispered. Her voice was urgent, sharp. "What is going on?" the man asked. "Did he do it?" He did it, Nia said. She let out a breath that sounded like a hiss. The idiot actually did it. He transferred the whole 5 million. He thinks it is in some blind trust in Switzerland. He thinks he is safe. I felt a cold smile touch my lips. She thought he was the idiot. She had no idea she was the one standing in the trap. So we are good? The man asked. Better than good, Nia said. I saw him write down the passcodes. He put the paper in his jacket pocket, but he took a picture of it on his phone first. He is so stupid, Trey. He uses the same cloud password for everything. While he was busy trying to impress that old white guy, I logged into his backup. I have the keys. I froze. She had the keys, not the keys to the fake Swiss account Brad had set up, because those keys were worthless. She was talking about something else. What about the crypto? The man named Trey asked. That is what I am talking about, Nia said. He thinks he hid 5 million in Bitcoin before we left. He thinks I do not know about the cold storage wallet he taped under the insole of his shoe. But I saw him do it, and I just got the seed phrase from his photo stream. My mind raced. I had missed the crypto wallet. I knew about the bank transfers, but Dante had physically smuggled a cold storage device. He was carrying another $5 million on his person, literally walking on it. I am going to drain it, Nia continued, her voice dripping with contempt. Tonight, as soon as he passes out. He has been drinking since we left Atlanta. He will be out cold by midnight. I am going to transfer the crypto to your wallet, take the diamonds he bought me, and get on the first flight to Miami. I looked at the screen. I quickly ran a trace on the number she was calling. It pinged to a cell tower in Miami Gardens. The registered owner was a man named Trayvon Davis, a known associate of the T-Bone Loan Shark crew. The pieces clicked into place. Nia was not just a gold digger. She was the inside woman. She had been planted, or maybe she had just seen an opportunity and taken it to the people who could help her cash out. Either way, she was playing Dante. She had been playing him the whole time. And Dante, that arrogant fool. He thought he was the player. He thought he was the one using her. He called me boring. He called me a bean counter. But while he was busy looking in the mirror, admiring his own reflection, he had let a viper into his bed. He is such a clown, Nia said, laughing softly. You should see him. He is wearing this ridiculous white tuxedo, looking like a waiter. He keeps talking about how he is a visionary. He is nothing. He is just a bank account waiting to be cracked. I cannot wait to leave him in this city with nothing but his fake suit. I felt a strange surge of emotion. It wasn't sympathy for Dante. He deserved this. He deserved every bit of this betrayal. But it was anger at Nia. I had saved her. I had pulled her out of that life, and she had used the skills I taught her, the polish I gave her, to destroy my family. She was not going to get away with it. She was not going to Miami with $5 million of my money. I opened the control panel on my laptop. Brad had set up the limousine that was waiting for them downstairs. It was a high-end Mercedes Maybach, fully wired for sound and video. We needed it to record any further admissions of guilt, but now it was going to serve a different purpose. I accessed the car infotainment system. I patched into the Bluetooth audio driver. I am going to wait until we get in the car, Nia said. I have to play the loving girlfriend for another hour. It makes me sick touching him. He smells like vomit and cheap cologne. But do not worry, baby. By tomorrow morning we will be rich, and he will be crying in a French jail. I love you, baby, Trey said. Get that money. I love you too, Nia said. See you soon. She hung up. I sat there for a moment, my finger hovering over the keyboard. I could just record this. I could use it later. But I was done waiting. I was done playing the long game. I wanted to see the look on Dante's face when his world collapsed. I wanted to see them tear each other apart. I downloaded the audio file of the call. I scrubbed it, cleaning up the background noise, making Nia's voice crystal clear. I set it to autoplay on the limousine sound system the moment the rear doors closed. I looked up. Brad was standing at the entrance of the restaurant watching me. He gave a subtle nod. The car was ready. The trap was set. I stood up and walked out of the restaurant, taking the stairs instead of the elevator to avoid running into Nia. I needed to be on the street level. I needed to watch this happen. Down on the street, the Maybach was idling at the curb, gleaming black and ominous under the Parisian streetlights. The driver, a large man who worked for Brad's security team, stood by the rear door. Dante came out of the elevator first. He was practically floating. He had his arm around Nia, pulling her close, whispering something in her ear. He looked like a man who had just conquered the world. Nia was smiling, that fake practice smile she used on clients. She rested her head on his shoulder, playing the part perfectly. She was good. I had taught her well. They walked toward the car. Dante stopped to admire it, running his hand along the roofline. "This is style, baby," he said, loud enough for me to hear from my vantage point in the alleyway. "This is how we live now. No more Uber, no more economy class, only the best." He tipped the driver €100 note, making a show of it. "To the Ritz, my good man," Dante said, "and take the scenic route. We want to see the lights." The driver nodded and opened the door. Nia slid in first, her red dress flashing in the streetlight. Dante followed, sliding in next to her. I watched the heavy door swing shut. The latch clicked. The interior lights of the car dimmed. I could see their silhouettes through the tinted glass. Dante was reaching for the champagne bucket that sat in the center console. He was popping the cork, ready to toast his victory. I pressed the enter key on my phone. The sound system in the Maybach was state-of-the-art. 19 speakers, surround sound. It was designed to make you feel like you were inside the music. Instead, the voice of Nia Cross filled the cabin, loud, crisp, and undeniable. "He is such a clown, Trey." I saw Dante freeze. The bottle of champagne was halfway to the glass. "You should see him. He is wearing this ridiculous white tuxedo, looking like a waiter." Inside the car, the silhouette of Dante turned slowly toward the silhouette of Nia. "He keeps talking about how he is a visionary. He is nothing. He is just a bank account waiting to be cracked." Nia's hands flew to her mouth. I could see her frantic movement even through the tint. She was reaching for the door handle, but the child locks were engaged. Brad was thorough. I saw him write down the passcodes. "I am going to transfer the crypto to your wallet, take the diamonds he bought me, and get on the first flight to Miami." Dante dropped the champagne bottle. It didn't break on the plush carpet, but the foam exploded, spraying over the leather seats. It makes me sick touching him. He smells like vomit and cheap cologne. The car was rocking now, not from the engine but from the violence erupting inside. I stepped out of the alleyway. I walked up to the car. I wanted to be the first thing they saw when the audio ended. The recording finished with Nia's words echoing into the silence. "By tomorrow morning, we will be rich and he will be crying in a French jail." Dante lunged. I saw his hands go for her throat. Nia screamed a sound that was muffled by the soundproofing of the luxury vehicle, but still audible on the street. She clawed at his face. The car shook as they slammed against the window. The driver did not move. He stood by the hood, arms crossed, watching the show. I walked up to the rear window and tapped on the glass. Knock, knock. Dante froze. His hands were still around Nia's neck. He looked out the window. His eyes met mine. For a second, he looked confused. He looked like he was seeing a ghost. He looked at me, the boring wife, the bean counter, the woman he had left behind in Atlanta. Then he looked at Nia, the woman he had destroyed everything for. He realized in that split second that he was trapped in a box with a woman who hated him, while the woman he had underestimated held the keys to his freedom. I smiled. It was the same smile he used to give me when he was lying about where the money went. I pulled out my phone and held it up to the glass. On the screen was the confirmation of the wire transfer. The $5 million was gone. And then I swiped to the next image. It was a live feed of his crypto wallet. Balance 0. I had triggered the margin call 2 minutes ago. While he was listening to Nia betray him, the market had liquidated his position. He screamed. It was a silent scream behind the glass, but I felt it. He let go of Nia and pounded on the window. "Keisha," he mouthed. Keisha. Nia was coughing, gasping for air, clutching her throat. She looked at me too. Her eyes were wide with terror. She saw the necklace around her neck reflected in the glass. She knew. I signaled the driver. "Unlock it," I said. The locks clicked. Dante threw the door open. He stumbled out onto the pavement, his white tuxedo stained with champagne and sweat. He fell to his knees in front of me. "Keisha," he gasped, reaching for my hem. "Keisha, you have to help me. She tried to rob me. She is a thief. You heard her." I took a step back, protecting my shoes from his touch. "I heard her," I said calmly. And I heard you. I heard you call me a machine. I heard you call me dead weight. That was just talk, baby. Dante pleaded, tears streaming down his face. I was drunk. I did not mean it. I love you. We can fix this. You have the money, right? You saved it. I looked down at him. He was pathetic. He was small. I saved the money, I said, but I did not save it for you. Nia crawled out of the car. She was a mess. Her dress was torn. Her hair was wild. She looked at me warily, keeping her distance from Dante. Keisha, she rasped. He tried to kill me. You tried to steal $5 million from the woman who paid for your education, I said, my voice cold. You are both garbage. And the garbage truck is here. Sirens wailed in the distance. They were getting louder. Dante looked around wildly. The police! You called the police. I did not call the police, I said, checking my watch. But the hotel manager at the Ritz did. Apparently, someone reported a stolen credit card being used to book the Imperial Suite. Dante checked his pockets. His wallet was gone. Nia was holding it. She dropped it on the ground. Run, Dante, I whispered. He looked at me. He looked at the sirens flashing blue lights reflecting off the wet pavement at the end of the street. He scrambled to his feet. He looked at the millions he thought he had. He looked at the woman he thought he loved. Then he turned and ran into the Paris night, leaving his dignity, his money, and his mistress behind. I watched him go. Then I turned to Nia. Give me my necklace, I said. She didn't argue. She unclasped it with shaking fingers and handed it to me. I held the diamonds up to the light. They were cold. They were heavy. Get out of my sight, I said. She ran in the opposite direction of Dante. I stood alone on the street next to the Maybach. I put the necklace in my pocket. The night was young, and I had a flight to catch. But first, I had one more stop to make. The game wasn't over until the king was in checkmate, and I knew exactly where he was running to. The streetlights of Paris flickered off the wet pavement as Dante lunged at Nia with a primal scream that shattered the elegant silence of the avenue. It was not the scream of a man who had lost money. It was the scream of a man who had lost his reflection. For years, Dante had looked in the mirror and seen a king, a visionary, a genius who was simply waiting for the world to catch up to his brilliance. But in the reflection of the limousine window, he had seen the truth. He saw a thief. He saw a fraud. He saw a man who was nothing without the woman he had betrayed. He did not handle the revelation well. He grabbed Nia by the shoulders of her torn red dress and slammed her against the side of the idling Maybach. The sound of her body hitting the metal was sickening, a dull thud that made the driver flinch but not intervene. Brad had paid the driver for silence, not for heroism. You stole it! Dante shrieked, shaking her so hard her head snapped back. You stole my seed phrase. Give it to me. Give me the phone. Nia was not the helpless girl I had found crying in the break room 3 years ago. She was a survivor from the streets of Atlanta, and she knew how to fight dirty when she was cornered. She did not beg. She did not cry. She reached into her clutch purse. Dante was too blinded by rage to see her hand move. He was too busy screaming about his millions, about his destiny. He raised a hand to strike her. Nia pulled out a small pink canister. It looked like a lipstick. It was military-grade pepper spray. She sprayed it directly into his eyes from 6 inches away. Dante howled. It was a sound of pure agony. He let go of her and staggered back, clawing at his face. He fell to his knees on the cobblestones, rubbing his eyes, making it worse, spreading the chemical burn across his skin. You stupid witch! Nia spat, coughing as the mist drifted in the air. You think I am scared of you? You are nothing. You are just a wallet, and now you are empty. She kicked him. She kicked him right in the ribs with her designer heel. Dante curled into a ball, wheezing snot, and tears streaming down his face, mixing with the champagne stains on his tuxedo. I watched from the shadows of the alleyway, my arms crossed against the chill of the night. I should have felt pity. I should have felt the urge to run out there and help him, because for 6 years that was my job. I was the fixer. I was the one who smoothed things over when he offended a waiter or forgot a bill. But tonight I felt nothing but the cold satisfaction of a forensic accountant watching a ledger finally balance out. This was the audit. This was the correction. Nia turned to run. She clutched her purse to her chest, knowing that even though the crypto wallet was empty, she still had the passwords. She thought she could still salvage something from this wreck. She made it 3 steps before the blue lights flooded the street. They did not come from down the block. They came from everywhere. 2 unmarked sedans swerved to the curb, boxing in the Maybach. A marked police van screeched to a halt behind them. Uniformed officers poured out shouting in French. "Police! Get down! On the ground!" Nia froze. She looked at the police, then back at Dante, then at the dark alleyway where I stood unseen. She dropped her purse. She raised her hands. Dante was still on the ground, blindly clawing at the air. He heard the voices. He heard the authority in them, and his delusion kicked in. The same delusion that convinced him he was an investor when he was really a con artist, convinced him now that the police were here to help him. "Help!" Dante screamed, his voice cracking. "Officer over here. She robbed me. She stole $5 million. Arrest her!" 2 officers grabbed Dante by the arms and hauled him to his feet. He was a mess. His eyes were swollen shut, his face red and blistering, his white suit ruined. He thrashed against their grip. "I am the victim," Dante shouted, switching to English, assuming everyone would understand him because he was an American millionaire. "Do you know who I am? I am Dante King. I have diplomatic status." He did not have diplomatic status. He had a platinum Sky Miles card and a delusions of grandeur complex. The officer ignored him. He spun Dante around and slammed him against the hood of the police car. He patted him down, rough and efficient. He pulled Dante's wallet from his pocket. Dante was still screaming. "My lawyer! Call my lawyer! I want Bradley Whitmore. He is a partner at Whitmore and Davis. He will have your badges. He is my business partner." I stepped forward slightly, just enough to see better. Dante really believed it. He believed the lie Brad had fed him so completely that he was trying to use it as a shield. He thought Brad was his ticket out of this. The officer opened Dante's wallet. He pulled out the passport. He looked at the document, then at a tablet held by another officer. He frowned. He spoke into his radio in rapid-fire French. I understood enough. I had taken French in college back when I thought I would be auditing fashion houses instead of fraud rings. Passport declared lost or stolen. Suspect identity unconfirmed. Flagged for flight risk. I smiled. I had called the U.S. Embassy 4 hours ago, right before we landed in Paris. I had reported my husband's passport stolen along with mine, claiming we were victims of a robbery in Atlanta before he fled. The embassy had flagged his passport number in the Interpol database immediately. When Dante tried to enter France, he had used that passport. But the system update had lagged. It had caught up now. Legally, Dante Williams did not exist in France. He was an undocumented alien with no identification carrying a flagged document. The officer said something to Dante in broken English. "Paper bad. You come." "No." Dante yelled, struggling. "Check the number. It is valid. I flew first class. I have money. Check my account." He tried to reach for his phone to show them the zero balance he had forgotten about. The officer twisted his arm behind his back and clicked the handcuffs into place. The sound of the cuffs ratcheting shut was the sweetest music I had ever heard. Nia was being cuffed too. She was crying loudly, playing the victim, screaming that Dante had kidnapped her. The police were not listening. They had found the pepper spray. Assault with a chemical weapon was a serious offense in Paris. Dante was being shoved toward the van. He was still blind, still frantic. "Brad," he screamed. "Brad, help me! Where are you?" I looked at Brad, who was standing in the doorway of the restaurant lighting a cigarette. He took a long drag, the cherry glowing in the darkness. He looked calm. He looked like a man watching a play he had already read the reviews for. Brad stepped out onto the sidewalk. Dante heard the footsteps. He knew that walk. Brad, Dante gasped, hope flooding his voice. "Brad, tell them. Tell them we are partners. Tell them about the Geneva Fund." Brad stopped 10 feet away from the police line. The lead officer, a stern man with a gray mustache, looked at Brad. He recognized the suit. He recognized the bearing of a man who charged $1,000 an hour just to listen. The officer walked over to Brad. "Monsieur," the officer said respectfully, "do you know this man?" Dante strained against the cuffs, bloodshot eyes trying to focus on Brad's silhouette. "Tell him, Brad," Dante pleaded. Brad looked at Dante. He looked at the vomit on the tuxedo. He looked at the desperation. He took another drag of his cigarette and exhaled the smoke slowly into the night air. Then he spoke in flawless, fluent French. "Officer, I have never seen this man in my life. He appears to be a disturbed American tourist. I believe he has been harassing the patrons of the restaurant." Dante jaw dropped. The betrayal hit him harder than the pepper spray. What Dante whispered. "Brad, what are you saying?" Brad ignored him. He turned to the officer, still speaking French. "However, I believe this lady might have some information regarding his identity. She has been pursuing him across the Atlantic to recover stolen property." Brad stepped aside. He extended his hand toward the alleyway. "Keisha," he said, his voice returning to English, soft and inviting. "Come say hello to your husband." I stepped out of the shadows. I walked into the pool of blue light from the police cruisers. My heels clicked on the pavement, a steady rhythmic countdown to his destruction. Dante squinted. He blinked, trying to clear the tears and the pain. He saw a woman in a black dress. He saw the wide-brimmed hat. He saw the red lipstick. "Keisha," he croaked. He sounded like a ghost. He sounded like a child waking up from a nightmare only to realize the monster was real. I stopped in front of him. I was close enough to smell the fear on him. "Hello, Dante," I said. "Keisha," he stammered. You came to save me. Tell them I am your husband. Tell them I have money." I looked at the police officer. I reached into my purse. I pulled out a thick, heavy envelope. It contained the FBI warrant from Atlanta, the forensic audit of the stolen $20 million, and the affidavit I had signed on the plane swearing that Dante Williams had forged my signature. "Officer," I said, my French rusty but clear, "this man is wanted by the Federal Bureau of Investigation in the United States for wire fraud, securities fraud, and identity theft. This woman is his accomplice." I handed the envelope to the officer. He opened it. He saw the FBI seal. He saw the extradition request Brad had drafted and faxed to the embassy an hour ago. Dante's face crumbled. He realized then that I was not there to save him. I was the executioner. "Keisha, please," he begged, dropping to his knees again, dragging the officer with him. "I can explain. The money, it was an investment. I was doing it for us. I was going to surprise you." "You surprised me all right," I said. "You surprised me with how easy you were to catch." I looked at Nia. She was watching me with wide, terrified eyes. She knew what was coming. "You," I said, pointing at her. Nia flinched. "Keisha, I am sorry. He made me do it." "Shut up," I said. I walked over to her. The officer holding her stepped back, sensing the authority in my voice. "You are wearing my grandmother necklace," I said. Nia nodded frantically. "Take it, please. I did not want it." He made me wear it. I reached out. I unclasped the diamonds from her neck. The metal was warm from her skin. I felt a wave of revulsion. I wiped the necklace on her dress before putting it in my pocket. "You are going to jail, Nia," I said. "You are going to a French jail, and then you are going to an American jail. And when you get out, you will have nothing. No degree, no career, no future. You traded it all for a first-class ticket to nowhere." Nia began to sob, loud, ugly sounds that echoed off the stone buildings. The officer barked an order. They hauled Dante and Nia toward the van. Dante fought them. He twisted around, screaming at me. "The money, Keisha. The $5 million. Where is it?" Brad said he put it in the fund. "Where is my money?" I stepped closer to him one last time. I wanted him to hear this. I wanted this to be the sound that played in his head for the next 20 years in a cell. "There is no fund, Dante," I whispered. "There is no Switzerland. There is no Brad the investor. There is just me." I tapped my temple. "I took it back," I said. "Every cent. I shorted your crypto. I redirected your wire. I liquidated your assets while you were eating breadsticks. You are broke, Dante. You are not a millionaire. You are a zero." Dante's eyes went wide. The realization hit him with the force of a physical blow. He stopped fighting. He went limp. "You robbed me," he whispered. "No," I said. "I audited you." The officer shoved him into the van. The door slammed shut. I saw his face pressed against the wire mesh window, watching me. He looked small. He looked like the man I should have seen 6 years ago. Brad walked up beside me. He put a hand on my shoulder. "It is done," he said. I watched the van drive away, sirens wailing, fading into the Parisian night. I touched the necklace in my pocket. It was safe. My parents' house was safe. My dignity was safe. "Is it done?" I asked. Brad checked his phone. "The money just cleared the escrow account. Your parents' mortgage is paid off. The rest is in your trust. We made a 20% profit on the crypto short." I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding since Atlanta. "Then it is done," I said. I looked at Brad. He looked tired but triumphant. "I am hungry," I said. Brad laughed. "We just left a 3-star Michelin restaurant." "I did not eat," I said. "I was too busy robbing my husband." Brad smiled. "I know a place. Best crepes in the city. Open all night. Lead the way," I said. We walked down the street, leaving the Eiffel Tower behind us. It sparkled in the distance, a monument to dreams and romance. But I did not need romance. I had revenge, and it tasted sweeter than any champagne Dante had ever ordered. I took out my phone. I had one more text to send. "To Jasmine, package secured. The trash has been taken out. See you at home." I hit send. My life as Mrs. Dante Williams was over. My life as Keisha, the woman who took down a $20 million fraud ring in 12 hours, was just beginning. And I had a feeling I was going to like her a lot better. The blue strobe lights of the police vans swept across the cobblestones of Avenue Montaigne, illuminating the scene like a strobe light in a nightmare nightclub. I stepped out of the shadows and into that harsh, flickering glare. My heels clicked rhythmically on the pavement, a sound that cut through the chaotic shouting of the French officers and the sobbing of the woman who used to be my friend. Dante was on his knees. His white tuxedo jacket was ruined, stained with champagne and street grime. His eyes were swollen shut from the pepper spray, tears streaming down his face, creating clean tracks through the soot. He looked small. For 6 years he had taken up so much space in my life, filling every room with his ego and his noise. But now, stripped of his pretenses, he looked like exactly what he was, a small, frightened man who had gambled everything and lost. He squinted against the light, trying to focus on the figure standing above him. He blinked rapidly, fighting the chemical burn. Then he saw me. He saw the hem of my black dress. He looked up and recognition broke through the pain. "Keisha," he gasped. His voice was wet and desperate. "Keisha, what are you doing here? You came. Oh, thank God you came. You are here to save me, right? You are here to tell them who I am." He reached out a hand toward me, his fingers grasping at the air. He truly believed it. Even after everything he had done, even after emptying our accounts and running off with my assistant, his narcissism was so profound that he believed I was still his fixer. He thought I was there to bail him out one last time because that is what I had always done. I was the safety net. I was the one who cleaned up the messes. I did not take his hand. I did not step back either. I stood my ground, looking down at him with the clinical detachment of a coroner examining a corpse. "I am here to tell them exactly who you are, Dante." I said, my voice calm and level. I reached into my leather tote bag. I did not pull out a checkbook to pay his bail. I did not pull out a lawyer business card. I pulled out a heavy manila envelope. It was thick, bulging with the weight of his crimes. I walked over to the lead detective, who was watching the interaction with interest. Brad said something to him in rapid French, pointing at the envelope in my hand. The detective nodded and stepped forward. "Officer," I said, speaking clearly so Dante could hear every word, "this is a complete forensic audit of the shell companies Dante Williams used to embezzle $20 million from investors in Atlanta. It includes the wire transfer records, the IP addresses used to forge the documents, and the sworn affidavits from the banks confirming the fraud." Dante froze. His hand dropped to his side. "And this," I continued, pulling. "A second thinner document from the envelope is a copy of the deed to my parents' house, which he illegally leveraged using a forged power of attorney. And this is his real passport, which I reported stolen yesterday, because as you can see, the one in his pocket is a high-quality forgery he bought on the dark web." I handed the stack to the detective. He flipped through it, his eyebrows raising as he saw the official FBI letterhead on the summary page. "Wait!" Dante stammered, struggling to get to his feet before the officer shoved him back down. "Keisha, what are you doing? That is crazy. I am your husband. We are partners." We are not partners, I said, reaching into the bag one last time. I pulled out a single blue folder. And this, officer, is a decree of divorce. I signed it on the jet over the Atlantic. My lawyers filed it electronically in Georgia 3 hours ago. I am not his wife anymore. I am the witness for the prosecution. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the street noise seemed to fade away. Dante stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish on a hook. The reality was finally piercing through his delusion. I wasn't his savior. I was his reckoning. Then there was a movement to my left. Nia. She had been standing near the police van, her hands cuffed behind her back, mascara running down her cheeks in black rivers. She saw Dante go down. She saw the evidence piling up. And her survival instinct, the same instinct that had gotten her out of the projects and into my home, kicked in. She threw herself onto her knees, scraping her legs on the pavement. She looked at me with wide, pleading eyes. "Keisha," she wailed. "Keisha, please, you have to help me. I am a victim too. He tricked me. He told me he was leaving you. He told me you were abusive. He said he would kill me if I did not come with him." I turned my head slowly to look at her. She looked pathetic, but I remembered the photo Jasmine had sent. I remembered her laughing in first class, drinking champagne paid for with my niece's college fund. I remembered her voice on the recording calling me a boring old woman and plotting to rob Dante blind. "You are not a victim, Nia," I said, my voice dropping temperature. "You are an accomplice, and you are a thief." "No, no, please," she sobbed, inching toward me on her knees. "I am like a little sister to you. You said we were family." I was scared. I did not know what to do. I took a step toward her. She flinched, expecting a blow. I did not hit her. I did not scream. I simply looked at her neck. The streetlights caught the fire of the diamonds around her throat. My grandmother's sapphire pendant. The one my grandfather had bought with his first paycheck from the railroad. The one my mother had worn on her wedding day. The one I had saved for my own daughter if I ever had one. Seeing it on her skin made my stomach turn. It was a violation deeper than the theft of the money. It was a theft of my history. "You are wearing my mother necklace," I said softly. Nia's hand flew to her throat, covering the gems. She tried to stammer an excuse. "He made me wear it. He said it looked better on me." "Take it off," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of every dollar I had ever given her, every door I had opened for her, every time I had defended her when people said she was trash. "Take it off. Right now." Nia nodded frantically. She struggled with the clasp, her cuffed hands making it difficult. The police officer, seeing the situation, stepped in. He unlocked one of her cuffs, just long enough for her to reach her neck. Her fingers were shaking so badly she couldn't work the latch. She clawed at it, breaking a nail. Finally, it came loose. The heavy gold chain slid into her palm. She held it out to me, her hand trembling. I did not touch her hand. I held out a handkerchief I had taken from my purse. She dropped the necklace into the cloth. I wrapped it up immediately, wiping away any trace of her sweat and her perfume. I put it in my pocket next to my heart. "Thank you," I said. "Now you can go." Where? She gasped. "Where are they taking me?" "To a holding cell," I said. "And then to a federal prison in Georgia. And when you get out in 10 or 15 years, you will be exactly where you were when I found you. Nothing. No degree. No career. No future. You traded your life for a seat in first class and you did not even get to finish the flight." The officer recuffed her. He hauled her to her feet and shoved her toward the van. She screamed my name one last time before the door slammed shut, cutting off her voice. I turned back to Dante. The officers were lifting him up now. They were not gentle. They knew what he was. They had seen the file. Dante wasn't screaming anymore. He was staring at me with a look of pure confusion mixed with horror. He still couldn't understand how the math had changed. He had the money. He had the girl. He had the plan. How was he in handcuffs? "Wait!" he shouted as they dragged him toward the second van. "Wait, the money! Where is the money? I transferred it. I sent it to the fund." "Brad? Where is Brad?" He looked around wildly, searching for the silver-haired savior who had promised him protection. Brad stepped out of the shadows near the restaurant entrance. He lit a cigarette, the flame illuminating his face for a brief moment. He looked at Dante and gave a small mock salute. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the Paris night. Dante's eyes snapped back to me. "You," he whispered. "You and him. You set me up." I walked right up to him. The officers paused, letting me have my moment. I was close enough to see the broken veins in his eyes, close enough to smell the fear and the stale alcohol. I leaned in close, my lips brushing his ear. "Where is the money, Dante?" he hissed. "Where is my $5 million? I smiled. It was a genuine smile, the first one I had felt in days. "There is no money, Dante," I whispered. "There never was a Swiss fund. That tablet you used, it was a mirror. You wired the money directly into an escrow account controlled by Whitmore and Davis." His breath hitched. He stopped struggling. "It is gone," I said. "All of it. I used it to pay off the mortgage you took out on my parents' house. I used it to refill the retirement accounts you drained. And the crypto I pulled back slightly so I could look him in the eye. I shorted your position," I said. "When you were busy choking your girlfriend in the back of the limo, I crashed the market on your specific coin. Your wallet is empty. But my personal trading account, it is up 20%. His face went slack. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He hadn't just lost. He had paid me to destroy him. You stole from me," he wheezed. "No, Dante," I said, smoothing the lapel of his ruined jacket. "I liquidated you." I nodded to the officers. They shoved him into the van. He started screaming then. He screamed about his rights. He screamed about his lawyer. But mostly he screamed about the money. It was mine. It was my money. The door slammed shut, sealing him inside his new reality. I stood on the sidewalk watching the blue lights fade into the distance as the convoy drove away. The street was quiet again. The air was cold and clean. I reached into my pocket and touched the sapphire necklace. It felt warm now. It felt like it belonged to me again. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of rain and victory. I checked my watch. It was 2 a.m. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Brad. "The jet is fueled. Wheels up in an hour. I ordered the lobster." I typed a reply. "Make it 2, and open the good champagne." I turned and walked down the Avenue Montaigne. My heels clicked on the stones, a steady, confident rhythm. I wasn't just a forensic accountant anymore. I was the woman who had walked into the fire and came out holding the match. I had my life back, I had my money back, and I had a story that was going to make me a legend in every boardroom in Atlanta. Dante Williams wanted to be unforgettable. Well, I had granted his wish. He was going to be the cautionary tale that every gold digger and con artist whispered about in the dark. I hailed a taxi. "Aéroport de Bourget," I told the driver. He looked at me in the rearview mirror. "You had a good night, madame." I looked out the window at the Eiffel Tower sparkling in the distance. "The best," I said, "the absolute best." The Gulf Stream touched down at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey, just as the sun was beginning to bleed orange over the Manhattan skyline. We had to make a stop to drop Brad off for a deposition, but for me, this was just a layover before the final leg of my victory lap. I sat in the back of the town car Brad had arranged, watching the city wake up. I felt different, lighter. The crushing weight of the betrayal that had nearly suffocated me 48 hours ago was gone, replaced by the cold, hard armor of absolute vindication. I checked my phone. The news alerts were already flooding in. The arrest of Dante King in Paris had gone viral not because he was famous, but because the fall was so spectacular. The video of him being dragged into the French police van screaming about his millions had been viewed 3 million times. The comments were brutal. They were calling him the Tinder swindler of Atlanta. They were laughing at his white tuxedo stained with vomit. They were dissecting his fake persona piece by piece. But the real news, the news that mattered to me, was in my email inbox. It was a secure message from the U.S. Attorney Office in the Northern District of Georgia. Subject: indictment. Unsealed. United States versus Dante Williams. I opened the attachment. It was beautiful. 20 counts of wire fraud, 10 counts of securities fraud, money laundering, identity theft. And thanks to the evidence I had handed over in Paris, they had added a charge for the fraudulent deed on my parents' house. Because Dante had crossed state lines and used international banking wires to commit his crimes, he was looking at federal time. There is no parole in the federal system. He was facing 20 years minimum. He would be 56 years old when he saw freedom again. And Nia, I almost felt sorry for her almost. The French authorities had deported her immediately. She was currently on a plane back to Atlanta, escorted by U.S. Marshals. She was not coming back to a penthouse. She was coming back to an indictment for conspiracy and aiding and abetting. She would likely cut a deal testify against Dante to reduce her sentence, but her life as she imagined it was over. She would never work in a corporate office again. She would never be trusted with a credit card again. She was returning to the exact poverty she had tried to cheat her way out of, but this time, she would have a felony record to keep her there. I closed the phone. The audit was complete. The ledger was balanced. I said goodbye to Brad on the tarmac. He hugged me tight, the smell of expensive tobacco and victory clinging to his coat. "You are terrifying, Keisha," he said with a grin. "Remind me never to make you angry." I smiled. "You are family, Brad. You are safe." I boarded a commercial flight back to Atlanta. But it was not just any flight. It was Flight 492 on the airline my sister flew for. And the pilot in command was Captain Jasmine Henderson. I walked down the jet bridge, my head held high. I was wearing the same black dress I had worn to destroy Dante, but I had added an accessory. Around my neck, glittering in the cabin lights, was my grandmother's sapphire pendant. It felt heavy and cool against my skin, a constant reminder of what I had almost lost and what I had fought to reclaim. The flight attendant at the door checked my boarding pass. Seat 1A. First class. The same seat Dante had sat in when he thought he was a king. But I did not pay for this seat with stolen money. I paid for it with the profits of my intelligence. In the 24 hours that the $5 million had sat in Brad's escrow account, he had not just let it sit there. Brad, being Brad, had seen the market volatility caused by the news of the Dante King scandal breaking. He had shorted the stock of the shell companies Dante was associated with, using the recovered funds as leverage. By the time we wired the money back to my accounts, we had made a profit. A significant profit. I had paid off the mortgage on my parents' house in full. I had replenished my mother nursing home fund. I had restored my niece college fund with interest. And after all of that, I still had enough left over to seed the capital for my new venture. I sat down in the wide leather seat and accepted a glass of champagne. This time it tasted like freedom. The plane taxied to the runway. The engines roared to life. I felt the thrust push me back into the seat, the same force that had carried Dante to his doom, now carrying me to my future. We climbed through the clouds, leveling out at 35,000 feet. The seatbelt sign pinged off. Then the intercom clicked on. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking." Jasmine's voice was warm, authoritative, and filled with a secret joy that only I could hear. "We have a smooth flight ahead of us to Atlanta. We should have you on the ground 20 minutes ahead of schedule. But before we settle in, I want to make a special announcement." I swirled my champagne, waiting. "We have a very special passenger on board with us today, in seat 1. Captain Henderson continued. "She is a woman who has had a very long and very difficult week. She is a woman who faced the worst kind of betrayal, and instead of breaking, she fought back. She traveled 4,000 miles to reclaim what was hers. She protected her family. She honored her history. And she single-handedly took down a fraud ring that the FBI had been chasing for 6 months." Passengers started looking around, craning their necks to see who she was talking about. I felt a blush rise to my cheeks, but I did not look away. "She is my sister," Jasmine said, her voice thick with pride, "and she is the toughest person I know. So, if you see her today, maybe give her a nod, because she just took out the trash, and now she is coming home to run the world. Welcome home, Keisha." The cabin erupted in applause. It started scattered, then grew. People were clapping, cheering, raising their glasses. The businessman across the aisle raised his scotch to me. The flight attendant beamed. I raised my glass to the cockpit door. "To family," I whispered. "The real kind." I spent the flight working. I opened my new laptop, one I had bought at the airport in Paris. I pulled up the business plan I had been drafting in my head for years, but never had the courage to execute because Dante told me it was too risky. Henderson Forensic Intelligence. No more working for a firm. No more making other people rich while I collected a salary. I was going to build my own empire. I was going to specialize in high net worth divorce cases and corporate fraud. I was going to be the weapon that women like me needed when they woke up and realized their husbands were lying to them. I typed out the mission statement. We find what they hid. We settle the score. I smiled. It was perfect. When we landed in Atlanta, the sun was shining. It was a bright, humid Georgia day. I walked out of the terminal and saw my parents waiting for me. My father looked older, tired from the stress of the loan shark threats, but when he saw me, he stood up straighter. My mother was crying, but they were happy tears this time. I walked up to them and handed my father a thick envelope. "What is this?" he asked. "Open it," I said. He opened the envelope. He pulled out the deed to their house. Stamped, paid in full. "Keisha," he gasped. "How?" "I told you, Daddy," I said, kissing his cheek. "I handled it." We drove to my house. The police tape was gone. The broken door had been boarded up. It looked wounded but standing, just like me. I walked inside. The silence was different now. It wasn't the silence of emptiness. It was the silence of a blank slate. I walked to the living room where the mannequin had fallen, where the FBI had raided, where my old life had ended. I picked up the frame that held my wedding photo. It was cracked down the middle, splitting Dante's face from mine. I took the photo out of the frame. I looked at Dante's smiling face one last time. He looked so confident, so sure of himself. He looked like a man who thought he could get away with anything. I walked to the fireplace. I struck a match. I held the flame to the corner of the photo. I watched his face curl and blacken. I watched the smile turn to ash. I dropped the burning photo into the grate and watched it turn to dust. I was not Keisha the wife anymore. I was not Keisha the victim. I was Keisha the CEO. Keisha the survivor. Keisha, the woman who went to Paris and came back with the crown. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Brad. "Just got word from the DA. Dante is trying to cut a deal. He says he can give them names if they reduce his sentence." I typed back, "Let him talk. It does not matter. I already have his assets. And Brad, tell the DA to check the offshore accounts in the Caymans. I think Dante forgot to mention the ones he opened in his mother name." I hit send. I had found those accounts on the flight back. I hadn't touched them yet. I was saving them for a rainy day. Or maybe I would just hand them over to the feds as a little postscript to my statement. I poured myself a glass of wine. I walked out onto the patio. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, just like the painting Dante had bought me the night we met. I still loved that painting. I wasn't going to burn it. I was going to hang it in my new office. A reminder that even beautiful things can be bought with lies. But the truth is priceless. I took a sip of wine. The air tasted sweet. Dante was in a cell. Nia was in handcuffs. And I was home. The game was over. And I had won. Keisha's story serves as a powerful reminder that underestimating a quiet, capable woman is a fatal mistake. Dante mistook her stability for weakness and her silence for submission, never realizing that the very skills he mocked, her meticulous attention to detail and financial expertise, would be the weapons of his destruction. This narrative teaches us that true security lies in self-reliance and the courage to set boundaries. Betrayal may wound us, but it also reveals our hidden strength. Ultimately, the best revenge isn't just surviving the fire, but using it to forge a stronger, unbreakable version of ourselves. If you believe in the power of karma and standing up for yourself, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of ultimate justice.